If you want to make more friends or just build better relationships, or maybe you have a feeling that people just don't like you. One reason could be that you might actually talk about yourself too much. Listen, I get it. People love to talk about themselves. And so we can use that to our advantage if we want to have better relationships or just make more friends. Let people talk about themselves more often. Giving somebody the space to talk about things that they're passionate about, or even things that are bothering them. Sometimes just letting people vent about something going on in their life may allow them to feel more comfortable around you, which will in turn allow you to have a stronger relationship. There's a really good quote by a very popular writer that says, "You can make more friends in 2 months by becoming interested in other people than you can in 2 years by trying to get other people interested in you." So don't be afraid to dive deep into what other people are saying and ask really good questions that can keep the focus on them. You can do this by asking what are called open-ended questions. Open-ended questions are questions that won't result in a yes, no, or one-word answer, but instead they'll require a thought-out, longer response. Pro tip: these kind of questions are great if you're going on dates because it keeps the focus on the person that you're trying to get to know. So an example of an open-ended question would be, what are your thoughts on soccer? Somebody may respond to that with the answer, I really like to play soccer, but I can't watch it on TV because the players just seem to fall all over the place all the time and I just don't understand. This longer answer opens up possibilities for you to keep the conversation going about soccer. Whereas if you were to ask the question, do you like soccer? Then you're either going to get a yes or a no answer, and it's going to be much more difficult to dive deeper into conversation when you get an answer like that. And in order to keep the focus on somebody else and allow them to open up deeper and feel better around you, you have to avoid this one thing that many people do without even realizing. You have to try and avoid shifting the focus off of the other person and onto yourself. Some people will hear a story in conversation, and because they can relate to that story, instead of diving deeper into that person's story, they'll shift the focus onto themselves and talk about how the story that they're hearing relates to their experience. That's a massive mistake. Don't be doing that. Allow yourself to actually pay attention to the story or the thing that you're being told, and don't interrupt it or respond with anything about yourself unless the person asks for that. If you want to be more liked, just be more interested in people. The next is an interesting psychological tip that actually makes sense when you think about it. Use people's names more. The human brain releases serotonin and dopamine when somebody hears their name. Serotonin and dopamine are happy chemicals. They make people feel good. Obviously, you don't want to overdo this because saying somebody's name way too much can get a little annoying and sometimes even creepy. Hey, Jim, I was thinking, Jim, we should go get a coffee after our workout, Jim. What do you think? Would you be okay with that, Jim? Obviously, that's a little bit extreme, but if you were to say something like, hey, Jim, how are you? I was thinking, after our workout, we can go grab a coffee. Would you be all right with that, Jim? That's a lot less weird and creepy. Sounds a little crazy, but just by using people's names a little bit more often, they may start to like you a little more. More importantly, if you greet somebody with their name after only meeting them once or a couple of times, they may be really surprised that you remembered their name, and this can make them feel like they matter to you. Have you ever seen somebody for the second or maybe the third time and you greet them with their name and they're super surprised? They say something like, oh, I feel so bad that you remembered my name and I can't seem to remember yours. Or, whoa, we only talked for like 2 minutes that one time. How do you even remember my name? Comment, been there, done that, if you've been in this kind of situation before. The last way is to actually evaluate yourself and ask yourself if you're any fun to be around. If you're always down and you never really show any real emotions, do you think that anybody will ever really want to be around you? People tend to want to be around others that make them feel good and uplift their energy. Smiling when you talk and changing the tone and the rhythm of your voice, as well as moving your body as you communicate, can make you a lot more fun to be around. If this isn't how you act normally, then you don't have to force it, but as silly as it sounds, you can practice this in the mirror. Practice talking with more expression, move your body in different ways as you speak, use your hands and your shoulders, and change the rhythm of your voice. Your voice can have great control over somebody. When you talk deep and slowly people tend to feel more comfortable around you. But when you talk really high pitch and really fast, sometimes people can get a lot more energy from you, but sometimes they can even feel a little bit more anxious. Knowing when to use your voice and how can actually drastically affect how people feel when you're around. Maybe try one of these things out the next time you're talking to somebody new, and drop a comment if you have any questions about anything I said today. And if you're curious, a lot of the things that I talked about today actually came from a very famous book called How to Win Friends and Influence People. And if you'd like to buy that book, you can use the first link in the description.